This is Mr. 13 Things coming at you after a long hiatus on the unemployment line. Um, Working hard at getting a job, yes, of course, but also working hard at exploring the edges of education. And with that, I give you basically something of kind of I'm not going to call it homebrew, but an example of what a Khan Academy produced exercise looks like running off of your own machine. So you'll notice that this has the appearance of being logged on to the internet, but it is not the case. I'm running this off of my own machine, which would make it relevant for those who are working with populations that are not allowed to go out on the internet. So I think this is be called a local install. So what I've done here and what I'm going to demo here is just what it looks like for an example, kind of a really basic knowledge like quiz, which would be something where you're just going to need to type in the answer. I'm going to point out here, you see this is a step up, which is what Khan Academy has done over the last 6 months from multiple choice. However, it does save all your answers, and I'll actually demo that here as well. So what I'm going to do is just come down here and show you what the input looks like when you've got this installed locally. You're going out off of a local host down to a particular HTML file. In reality, this is what allows you to save your answers, though you don't even need to go to this degree. You can just link to an HTML file off of a flash drive if you want. I think that would lose the ability to save what's thrown out with your answers, but you would get most of the functionality. So I'm going to bring this back up so you can see it, go through this exercise, and it is entitled Una Semage. Kama watu ambao wamesoma Kiswahili wanaweza kuelewa maana ya hii maana yake ni what is the spoken word, or how do you say this. So I see here I've got something generally described in English. What is the spoken word for the number 0? And then I have it written out in Kiswahili. Unasemaje namba 0 katika Kiingereza. So how do you say this in English? Now, you notice here there is no examples of what you're going to give, but there is a potential to say I'd like a hint. So I'm going to go ahead. So if you basically put in 0 here, you're going to see something pop up here. And you see all that data right now is being written out to a local server. So it's my name and some information, what I answered. I answered incorrectly. I didn't use any hints. And so there's a whole bunch of stuff there. But what I can also do now is to go through to I'd like a hint. And it says this, Kama unaishi karibu ya lodwar husema mam kwa sababu haelewi Kiingereza. So that might not be much of a hint unless you speak a couple other languages, and then you would say, oh, mam, hii ni 0. And I can go ahead and use another hint. I'll just use 2 this time. Kama unaishi karibu ya Mombasa, husema sufuri, kwa sababu hawalewi Kiingereza. If you live near Mombasa, you say sufuri, which is in fact the Kiswahili for 0, a huge concept. And I'm going to type in sufuri. Of course, this is not correct because it's not English, but when I say check answer, you notice the little difference here. It has written in what I did. It's told me that the 0 here means that you got it wrong and you've used 2 hints. This you'll see later is the definition of the exercise, and there's a lot of information that you are throwing in a database for winnowing and dealing with later. This is the metrics, especially with this timestamp. Hit OK here. I'm going to go ahead and ask for another hint. Kama unaishi karibu ya Nairobi, where they speak a lot of English, husema 0 kwa sababu hawaelewi Kiingereza. So now I might type in 0 and hit check answer. And I get the happy face, and I go on to the next question. We're going to show you that I don't have this as developed as it should right now because I am not using a very common function, which would be capitalize everything or take everything to lowercase. So you do have to be a little bit proactive and thoughtful when you do things this way. However, better than multiple choice in many cases. Multiple choice is great for many things. It's great because it makes your grading easier. Well, now your grading is taken, it's taken up by this machine, and you can get some little nuanced answers as you start pulling out data. So I'll go through this one, and I'm just going to now type it TWO and realize that it doesn't like that. However, it would like TWO, and I check the answer. So there's a function there that I would want to stick in if I'm going to fix this. All right, so that's what this looks like. I'm not going to show you the code here that makes that. I want you to be aware that it's very compact. I don't want to give away too much of the store. When I stick this out, we'll talk about that why later. It is open source, so you can go out to the Khan Academy Forge site or GitHub if you want to look around at some of the coding. But what I'm going to now show you is what data was sucked up. I'm going to go down here. I'm going to go to MySQL. Clicking on MySQL, bringing this up here, and I am going to type use test, and I'm going to select star from test. And you see there's a lot of data coming down through there very quickly, and you can notice here that I've got data here stored for what I've done today. So I basically wrote this demo. Well, I've done a lot so far. I wrote this demo earlier this morning, and this is a timestamp, and I've used it I've probably made something like 20 attempts, and they're all stored. This by itself is too much, but very simple, pre-made kind of summary things is what the Khan Academy itself does. So I'm pointing this out. You're doing this basically to get ahead, perhaps, and be aware of what's happening out at Khan Academy. Perhaps you're doing this because you're not allowed to use the internet for some reason, because you don't like Sal Khan's spelling. Who knows? So I'm just going to go ahead and do this here. Select star from test where, and then you could do all kinds of statements there. And you get the sense of how much data is being stored. You can do it eventually. You'll see this can be changed a little bit. I'll be adjusting this. I'm keeping everything as one piece of data there. You see it enclosed in brackets, which says it is a list or an array. The key to really getting a little bit ahead in any of this, and it's going to be the reality in all of dealing with data, is to get ahead by looking at a little bit of HTML and a little bit of JavaScript. Not a lot. You can do a lot without any knowledge of those, but that basically is a skill that we all should be learning anyway. Anyone at least who's got a Facebook page. So I'm going to take you back here. We're back up. This is still recording. And you see, correct the next question. I'll take you out the one of Khan's now that's running on this machine. Absolute value.html. Teach your students not to use spaces in file names. That would be one of the most important things I would tell young teachers trying to train those who will be using these things as natives, if you want to talk about it that way. I'm going to go to this one here. You see now, seamlessly I've gone to actually something that's produced by Khan Academy, though once again it's running off the local server. I'll show you what their hints look like. I like a hint, much better than mine. I like another hint, and you're supposed to, of course, put the answer in. If I say 2.1 because I didn't read correctly, I check the answer. You see it threw the data out. I say now 2.2. I get the smiley face, and I get credit to move on. In this case, how I got it correct, but I used a hint. So you can see later on, you would like to know whether these students are getting things without the hint, perhaps whether just using one hint, and I would make a suggestion. If you're building things like this, the first hint shouldn't give too much away. In Khan Academy, however, if you use any hint, you don't get credit. So you might go by that framework as well. All right, that's what I got. Thanks for listening.